a cheers, and I want the Arabic cheers and the Polish cheers.
All right, let's do Arabic first.
All right, Saha.
Saha.
Which means good health.
And in Polish, Nostrovia.
Nostrovia.
That's it. You nailed it. Yes. And I think they underperformed last year and won 9 games. So to me, 10 is kind of the baseline. Are they a 12-13 win team? No, I think that's reserved for the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Niners, maybe the Eagles, like the teams with like really exceptional rosters that Seattle's not quite there yet. But they have an opportunity in this draft and free agency now with some money to spend to close that gap. So I would predict 10 wins for the Seahawks. If they won 9, I wouldn't be surprised. If they won 8 or less, I would be very surprised. I think this team is more likely to win 11 games than they are to win 8.
You're listening to the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. I'm Sammy, and with me, as always, is my older brother, George.
Your favorite place to be a fan of Seattle sports. Now let's get this party started.
Tito, are you ready? Are you ready? You ready?
Kind of almost to a fault are always in, you know, like
Totally.
the Jamal
Totally
Adams trade, the Percy Harvin trade back in the, like, I feel like we're always like putting all our chips on the table. Meanwhile, the Mariners are always kind of like not the Mariners, if they were playing poker, I feel like they'd have like a opportunity to catch us straight on the river, and they're just folding their hands over and over again.
That's exactly it. Like someone's putting in the minimum bet, and they're like, "I'm out." And no, yep. I'm 100% with you on that. And like, as a Seahawks fan, yeah, you can look at the Jimmy Graham trade, the Percy Harvin trade, the Jamal Adams trade, some of their draft picks, and be like, "Oh man." Even the Leonard Williams trade, like y'all weren't ready to make that. Y'all weren't ready to make that trade, but like, at least you're fucking swinging. Like, you're trying to win a championship. You know what I mean? Like I'll take that. I'll take a swing and a miss. I'll take a swing and a miss over a called strike every time.
Yo, I was going to say, like, the big difference between the Mariners and the Seahawks is this year was a great example with that trade you just mentioned, because you have Leonard Williams, who, like, the Seahawks were I mean, I liked having Leonard Williams, but it probably wasn't necessarily what they didn't have to do it, right? We weren't going to win the Super Bowl. They didn't have to do it. While the Mariners, who were like, yeah, they're having a little bit of a slow start, but they're supposed to be in competing years, traded Paul Sewald right at the deadline. Like, they were selling at the deadline because they're like, we're not quite there, while the Seahawks were like, fuck it, we're all in. Like, let's try. Like, and so it's fun. Like, I love it about the Seahawks, to be honest.
I'd rather have that any day of a week.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's obviously the big difference between you have a hard cap in the NFL and you don't in Major League Baseball. That's why you can have, an ownership group for the Dodgers. It's like, yeah, we'll cut $1 billion worth of checks this offseason. We own this team because we want to win the World Series. It's like, yes, in the NFL, having ownership that's willing to spend matters. But at the end of the day, you're only allowed to spend $230 million on your roster. And this year, $255 million on your roster. Major League Baseball, you can spend as much money as you fucking want to spend on your team if you want to win bad enough. That's why, like, when I was younger and everyone hated the Yankees, I was like, yeah, I hate the Yankees too. But, like, I'm super jealous of the Yankees because the Steinbrenners are just going to spend money on the best free agent every single year because they want trophies. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so that's a nice little segue to what we were talking about before the podcast off the camera about, us being immigrants and my dad immigrating here from Syria. So my dad has the same theory here, but my dad was the biggest Chicago Bulls fan, the biggest New York Yankees fan, now the biggest Golden State Warriors fan.
Patriots.
What a great life.
New England Patriots.
What a great life. I love his life.
And it kind of goes to like what you're saying, like you have to swing. Like when teams swing, you get rewarded. And I think that's like, but my dad, I don't think is untypical to most foreigners because they took a big swing by immigrating to the United States. So they like to see these teams like the Yankees, and they see a team like the Mariners or, a team that is like pinching pennies and is like, you guys are billionaires and you're pinching pennies.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Go ahead, Sammy. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, not to make this about me, but to make this about me. So, like, recently, I work in real estate up here, and my wife and I have been fortunate enough to be, we've been good at it. And And so we had an opportunity where we were switching firms this year. And so we had a number of we put it out there that we were switching firms. And so we had a number of firms reach out, and we met with 12. We were free agents, essentially. We met with 13 different firms. And 3 of them made offers that were just like, oh my God, like, yes, we will sign this tomorrow. But then you start comparing the companies, and it felt like, you know, how these free agents must feel, where it's like, okay, hey, the Mariners are saying, we'll pay you this. And then the Twins are saying, we'll pay you the same thing. And now the Dodgers are saying, we're going to pay you the same thing. Well, you're going to go play for the Dodgers because you might actually win a championship there. And that's ultimately what we did, is like, we essentially had 3 offers that were all very tantalizing. But we're like, we're going to go to the place that's like actually going to support us the most, that cares the most about being the best firm, instead of just getting these 2 realtors who, you know, they think will improve their team or whatever. And so it's like, obviously on a tiny scale comparatively, but I understood, it's like, yeah, being part of a championship culture, like, this is far and away the best firm in our market. I want to go there. I want to go see why they're the best. And we've been there for 2 months, and it's like, oh yeah, it's real obvious why they're the best. They're like, they have 6 people. The part of their pitch that swung us was, they said, we have 6 people on staff at all times whose only job is to tell you yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's something like,
that's some nice amenities.
Yeah, that's something like the Dodgers would say.
Yeah, like, whatever you need, there's someone here. Their job is to tell you yes, and they'll figure out how to get that to you. And it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go there.
Yeah, and it goes to show, like, in general, right? Like, unless someone, and like, in general, I'm not, like, I don't know how to say it. Like, let's take it to the football terms, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we just saw the rankings of all the facilities, and the Kansas City Chiefs had the worst facilities, the worst front office, the worst whatever. They had, like, they were across the board, except head coach was an A, who's an all-time head coach, and obviously their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is the most talented quarterback maybe to ever walk on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So if you aren't in an organization, the only way that organization could have succeeded is to have that anomaly of having a Patrick Mahomes or a Andy Reid. But once those 2 are gone, if they run their team the way they're running them now, they're going to be bottom feeders.
Absolutely agree, man. I was just joking with some buddies about how the Cleveland Browns were like the best team before the merger, back when it was the AFL. Like, the Cleveland Browns are just winning over and over and over again. Then they merged the 2 leagues, and you start having the ability for, like, players to move back and forth. And the Browns ain't won shit in like 70 years. Because they don't fucking spend money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
they saw the other side. Players were like, wait a second. There's facilities that are nice and different.
They finally spent money on the wrong person.
Yeah. I know. Out of all people.
Well, it kills me. The Bengals are the same way, right? And, like, Joe Burrow, if Patrick Mahomes is an A+, Joe Burrow is like an A-, right? And so, like, they got him, Jamar Chase, you know, T. Higgins, a few other good players, all this stuff. And I'm looking at this motherfucker that's getting paid $250 million, and he's standing behind like a $20 podium that they, like, roll out for the press conferences, and they haven't updated their weight room in 15 years. And I'm just like, oh my God.
They're like, Joe, don't lean on the podium in my break, all right?
Yeah.
Like,
you might get hurt.
Injuries.
Yeah.
That's good shit.
Same thing goes with, we've been talking about Arizona. People that listen to this podcast know George and I are out in Arizona, and, like, the Cardinals always get, like, the F on nutrition and, like, the team and stuff. I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, you look at, like, the city of Arizona or the city of Phoenix, I guess, is a growing, really big metropolitan, and, like, you pay a quarterback $200 million.
City in the country, yeah.
Yeah, and then they have this, like, their practice facility is like one of those air bubble, the white ones that they, like, inflate. And it's like, and they don't put trees around it. They don't, like, maintain much of it. And it's like, you would think, like, an owner would look at the situation and say, hey, maybe if I want to win, like, our first Super Bowl, I could, like, go spend a little bit of the money that we make and, like, make it nice. Like, otherwise, like, I don't know why these teams expect players to want to come to you. And everyone always gives the excuse, like, this owner's not as rich as this owner. They're all fucking billionaires. Like, they can spend money.
That's exactly right. And also, the thing about owning an NFL team is the value of your team is going to increase by 10 to 20% every year regardless. And the shitty thing is you get a family like the Bidwells, and they're just like, oh, great, we'll just take the 20%. We'll let these other teams finance us through revenue sharing instead of saying, like, look, we're going to make our fucking $50 million or $500 million a year in equity regardless. Let's go win some championships while we're at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's weird. You know,
and I wonder. Oh, go ahead, Sam. All right.
I was
going to say.
yeah.
I was going to wrap it all into the Seahawks for a second. And our rankings came out with those facilities like pretty average, right? Like they weren't great, they weren't bad. But I was a little surprised by that because, I mean, we've always been known an organization that takes care of their players. And you might be a little more plugged into this than we are. Is that after Paul Allen I'm not saying that Jody Allen's not doing a good job. She might be doing a great job. But is that something that might have changed after Paul Allen's, like, because he was passionate about the team.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking about that. And I don't have like insight, but we talked about this on our show too. And it's just hard to imagine Paul Allen being okay with being the 14th best run organization in the NFL. Like he was famously obsessive about the details of the Seattle Seahawks. And like when the VMAC was built, it was state of the art. Like it was the standard that every other NFL team was chasing. And, since his passing, Jody Allen has been, by all accounts, very involved, but like behind the scenes. And she also knows that by inheriting the team, one of the stipulations is she has to sell it. And so it's like, all right, if I know I'm going to be able to sell this franchise for $5 billion regardless, why am I going to put $50 million into upgrading the facilities or making sure all of my players are flying first class or the other things that they're getting knocked on? Like, it's not her legacy. Like, she is actually contractually obligated to sell this franchise. And I feel like with Paul Allen, it was his legacy, and he was willing to really... he owned the most expensive yacht on planet Earth. Like, that's not by accident. That is like a very intentional, I have this money, how am I going to optimize it? That's how he treated the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not sure that Jody does it the same way.
Did she inherit the yacht too?
She did, but she had to sell it according to the estate. She had to sell the Octopus, a $216 million yacht that costs $120,000 to turn on.
To turn on? My goodness.
To start that thing up fully staffed was $120,000.
Not too shabby of a lifestyle though.
Right.
I wouldn't mind that myself. It's interesting. I'm wondering if Paul Allen knew that like she's not going to be as passionate about the legacy and was like, I'm doing this for my sister and I want her to pass it on.
No. He did. He did not want Jody Allen being the long-term owner. My understanding, they were not on great terms. This was like, yes, she is my nearest of kin. She is going to take over, but the deal is she doesn't get to do this forever. She has to sell. I don't want Jody doing this forever. So I do think there was something there.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hope that whoever it goes to next, we can keep up a standard because I think that's something that's like big with the Seahawks, right? I mean, like if you look at with the last 20 years, like we've been known as one of those top standard teams, right? Like you know that the Seahawks are meant to be a serious organization. You have one of the best stadiums in football, if not the best, and you have the VMAC on the water, and like it's supposed to, like we were based on prestige, and players wanted to come. Like you saw Jamal Adams' reaction when he got traded to the Seahawks. Like he was excited because the Seahawks have this aura of like, wow, we're winners. And even just winning one Super Bowl over the last the whole existence. I'm talking about this last 20 years. We've always been there. We've been to 3 Super Bowls. We've never had the first pick in the draft. Like we've kept a standard. So I'm hoping that stays because it's been, when we're talking about the comparison between the Mariners and Seahawks, like I really appreciate the Seahawks method of fuck it, we're going all in every year and trying to figure this out. And this year we went to try to go get the best coach on the market, right? Like maybe outside of, maybe Belichick is the best coach in the market, and Pete Carroll is
Harbaugh.
actually probably the second, or Harbaugh. Yeah, but
No,
we were
man,
trying
they
to do our
swung-
best.
They swung for the fences with McDonald, and they were willing to
Yep.
wait. Is the thing,
Yeah.
which was a really risky thing, and it's a credit to Jody Allen that she signed off on that, because that's something that Paul Allen would have done. Paul Allen took a big swing on Mike Holmgren after the Packers won the Super Bowl. He took a big swing on Pete Carroll coming off all those national championships down at USC. Was not afraid to take the swing. And my whole thing is okay, if you're going to, and I was expecting Pete Carroll to be back next year. I thought Pete Carroll was going to go out on his own terms.
Me too.
But when it happened, I would say I was surprised, not shocked, but I was surprised. I was like, okay, if you're doing this, then you have to take a big swing. Because if you're going to go the Mike Vrabel, Dan Quinn route, just keep Pete Carroll. But if you're going to move on from Pete Carroll, go for the next thing. Look for that next Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniels type of guy. And I think after the Ravens whipped their ass, and John Schneider said this in the opening press conferences, he was basically like, I want that. I've never had my ass kicked like this in my life. I want that guy.
Yeah, it was crazy to see that game. That was the one of those that 37-3, I think it was. You can tell they got their ass kicked.
Oh, big time. And they were 5-2 at the time. This was the first game after the Leonard Williams trade, and they're posturing as though we're a Super Bowl contender. And I think that really opened the eyes to the entire franchise. Actually, we're not one step away. We're 3 steps away from the best teams in this league.
Absolutely. And I think that was regardless, I love Pete, and I would have loved to keep Pete.
Totally.
And he's the he's the best coach in Seattle sports history, let alone
Fully agree.
Seahawks history.
Fully agree.
Unless you want to talk about college and Don James. But the thing with Pete was it was inevitable. It was going to happen whether it was this year, next year, or the year after. He's gotten old. So starting the rebuild now is better than starting the rebuild later, because by the time he rebuilt, he might have been ready to go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, George.
Yeah, he might have been ready at that point. That's a good point. Well, I want to do a quick kind of an intro, because we missed it off camera. I didn't press record, and I'm keeping this part in the podcast right now.
Roll, baby. We're going.
Yeah, we were letting it roll. We were letting it roll before the pod started. For those that didn't get to see it, because only us 3 got to see it, we saw you drinking the whiskey, having the cigar, so we went and poured ourselves a glass of whiskey, and we talked a little bit about our family backgrounds and stuff. And George and I come from Syrian descent. George was actually born in Syria, and you said your wife was from Poland. And
That's right.
I want to give us
First
on
generation.
camera a cheers, and I want the Arabic cheers and the Polish cheers.
All right,
more
let's
time.
let's do Arabic first.
All right, Saha,
Saha.
which means good health.
And in Polish, Nostrovia.
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 That's it. You nailed it. Yes.
I love
I think
it.
Nostrovia is in multiple languages too,
Yes,
if I'm
it
not
is.
mistaken.
Yeah,
Russian, Ukrainian.
Yeah, all the Baltic countries have
Okay,
a
yeah.
little version of that. Yep.
Yeah, I spent about 6 months in Europe last year, just working remote on the pod. But I was watching Mariner games at 4:30 a.m. Polish Standard
psycho.
Time.
Yeah.
I know, but so I got to meet a lot of Polish people, Ukrainian people, Russian people, and I recognized the cheers right away there.
I love it.
It's awesome. I love both of our backgrounds, and I want you to give us a little bit of a background. For those, I know I bet 99% of the Seahawks community knows who you are, but give us your background, what you do, and who you are, and then we'll keep chatting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, I started writing about the Seahawks, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years ago on just a little WordPress blog, just to get the thoughts out of my head. And, I think 8 people would read each article, and I'd get one comment on each one, and it would be from my mom, who was like, "Good article, son." Thanks, Mom. And
We've
but
all
I
been there.
enjoyed doing it. Yeah. So I enjoyed doing that, and that led to a couple of opportunities on some now defunct websites, including Next Season Sports, they reached out for some local sports writers, and that's what I wanted to do at the time. And so I wrote for them. And then when Danny Kelly, who peeked behind the curtain, I just got off my own show, Cigar Thoughts, with Danny Kelly as the guest. We were kind of reminiscing, but he took over as the managing editor for Field Goals, which I think a lot of Seahawks fans are familiar with. A lot of great coverage there. And he was looking to add some writers, and he was like, hey, I came across your blog. Would you be interested in maybe trying out writing for us? So I did. I was like, yeah, of course. I read your shit every day. Like, yeah, that would be great. So he's like, let's try out an article. I tried out an article. It was well received. He's like, let's keep you on. And I wrote all kinds of different stuff for a couple of years. And then as my life started to get busier and like building a family and a career and all that stuff, I didn't quite have as much time. So I narrowed it down to a couple articles a week. I'd write a betting article back before it was legal on how to bet on the NFL. And then I would write a game recap every week that would go up within a couple hours after the game. And that's what really started gaining the traction. And people really seemed to like that. And so I was like, okay, this needs to be searchable. Like if someone, there's 1,000 people writing about the NFL, the Seahawks, whatever. If someone wants to find my stuff, there should be a way for them to find it. And so I was like, okay, what's unique about this process for me? For me is after the game, and like, for being honest, during the game, I'm smoking cigars. And I would always smoke a cigar after the game, process my thoughts, and then start writing about them. And I was like, okay, I'm calling these my cigar thoughts. And so that just gained hold. And that was like 10 years ago. So I've been doing this for 10 years, writing about every Seahawks game. And it's turned into some really cool opportunities. You know, we optioned it into a podcast. The article is doing well. People seem to like them. People seem to like the show. And for me, selfishly, it's a little bit of a masturbatory exercise for me because I'm just like, I love the Seahawks, and this is something that like I'm very into. But because people seem to like what I'm doing, it's given me the opportunity to connect with people in the Seahawks beat, within the national football reporter pool, and have gained some really cool connections, been able to get them on the show and get their insight. So my main goal is to become a smarter football fan, and I kind of use my show as a conduit to being able to pick the brains of some of the smartest people in the industry. So anyway, that's how Cigar Thoughts happened. And look, it's culminating with an appearance on the On Tap podcast. So like I've made it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. But like,
we're happy to have you on.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you on. And it's funny you say what you said there about your mom putting the comments in as your first comments. Us was a little bit different because we started with like just podcasting and doing all that, and we'd put it out on Twitter, and we'd get like a bunch of retweets right away every single time. And little did we know, my dad had like 5 different Twitter accounts.
I love it.
Yeah, and it was all like
so
my dad
good.
he had like Keith Dueling, Seahawks Fan Nation or some like random name, and like the photo was Pete Carroll, and like he still does it till today, which is kind of
So
funny.
good,
We're like, Dad, you like don't retweet everything as soon from like 5 different accounts anymore. We don't really need to do that. But
Yeah, well, you guys are on now. Like now, every time you guys fucking tweet a question, you'll be like, Seahawks fans, what do you think about this? It's like 1,000 freaking retweets and 800 responses, and I'm like, Jesus, these guys figured it out, man. I get like 1 tweet a year that gets the average traction you guys get. So y'all are doing it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Really
it's fun.
appreciate it.
I mean, it's funny because sometimes I know our Twitter Twitter performance is it does really well, right? The engagement, but it's just funny because people also get mad. Like I'll get those random comments all the time of just like, this is a tweet engagement question. Like you knew what you were doing. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry. This is how Twitter works. I'm just asking a question. Like,
Yeah,
the question,
you're damn
baby.
right. You're damn right. We're looking for engagement. That's what we're trying to do on Twitter. We had Sherman
you guys,
chiming in.
you guys are also like offering insight and like asking real questions. It's not like, you know, the thing that frustrates me is when people are like, what if the Seahawks traded DK Metcalf for 3 first-round picks? What do you think? And you're like, well, yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah, we'll
Love
take
it.
it.
You're not going to
Love
fucking
DK,
get
but
that.
I love
Like,
first-round
what are you
draft
doing?
picks.
Like, oh, congratulations on the fucking 1,000 quote tweets calling you an idiot. Like, I hope that engagement was worth it. But that's like not real conversation. You guys actually generate real conversation. So Y'all are doing it.
Thank you, man. And that's
appreciate
our goal with the Sports on Tap network in general. Like right now, we're really focusing on Seattle stuff, but our goal is to grow this into multiple brands and kind of have Seattle be like the springboard for all of it and be like a Seattle media company one day. That is,
I love that.
Now has multiple like Cardinals on tap one day, hopefully, or something like that, where we can have everyone connect together in one big ecosystem.
Yeah, well, y'all are well on your way, and I'm stoked to be here talking ball with you.
We're stoked to have you on, man.
Yeah,
and you got us pouring the whiskey at 5:30, which is nice.
Hey, we're doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it, baby.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I love it. I mean, one thing that really intrigued me about having you on, and I think we've gotten to this point. We talked about this a little bit before the show, before we started, but I love being able to sit and have a conversation. I want to ask you about this too, because I think there's a interesting side of like sports media that's just like really serious journalism, like almost like super serious and like just like I'm a media person. I'm just asking the questions, reporting on it, and that's it. I feel like you are probably, in my opinion, like the first person to kind of just do something different, which was cigar thoughts, right? Like I'm going to sit, I'm going to have a glass of whiskey, I'm going to smoke a cigar, and I'm just going to be like talking as I would to a friend and just want to have a conversation. And I think that's like what's really cool about this new wave of media, where it's not just about, we still need, don't get me wrong, we still need media credential to go ask the coaches questions and have real like real articles and real insight on I spoke to Pete Carroll and he said X, Y, or Z. I spoke to that's important. But my thing is I kind of love this new wave of being able to sit with people, have a drink, have a smoke, and just chat it up, because I think it's really cool to sit and feel like you're kicking it with your friends and actually be able to talk sports. And this is it makes it a little more real, right? Like the fan side of sports. And that's what I really enjoy about this, is being able to just meet people, chat it up, and let's talk about Pete Carroll. Let's talk about, our lives. Let's talk about different things. When you were first doing this, were you just you know what, I know you said, I have a cigar and I do this. Did you think about that? This is going to be a different kind of it's intentionally a little different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my goal, and it was articles for years before it was a podcast, was I want to talk about the game to my computer the way that I would to a friend. A fellow Seahawks fan that watched the game, here's me breaking it down the way that I see it. I'm going to be wrong on shit. I've been wrong on lots of stuff, but I'm right on lots of stuff too. And the goal is to just present it in a way that isn't sifted through all the filters of media credentials. I can make an off-color joke. I can toss a swear word in there because that's how I talk to my friends. Sometimes I'm fucking inebriated at the end of a game, and I'll write it, and I'll read it the next morning, and I'm like, oh, God.
Shit.
Bro, what was that? But authentic in the moment, right? It's warts and all, man. This is how I see the Seahawks. And it's been cool, and it's been an ego stroke to see that people connect with it. But at the end of the day, if it was 10 people reading it or 100,000 people reading it, this is me. This is how I see the Seahawks. This is how I want to talk about it. And if people fuck with it, I'm down.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, Bill Simmons from The Ringer, the Podfather, probably the first one to ever do it really big. He said something a long time ago that really resonated with me, and I kind of feel like we try to do that in our company. Is he said he deliberately, even when he was growing, tried to stay away from being an insider, from having too many players on, so he can be it's very easy if we had, I don't know, Geno Smith on our podcast once a week, it'd be really hard for us to be critical of Geno Smith because you get a connection with the guy, or if you got it really close to Pete Carroll, or if you're credentialed and you're going to the
you don't want to
press
risk them not coming back on the next week, right? Yeah.
Right. So, like, part of it, I think, is, and I think that's the beauty of it. I kind of feel like sports was missing, and now it's better. The media coverage without the insight. And I think it gives you much more unfiltered, much more authentic conversations, and a lot more brash. People can be brash.
You can. And if it's not your flavor, like, you can just, you don't gotta, again, like, it's not Bob Ryan anymore where you're just like,
Right.
well, this is the guy who talks about Boston sports, so like whatever Bob Ryan says, like, you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Cigar Thoughts isn't for me. I didn't like his take on fucking Jordan Brooks or whatever. Like, you can write me off. You don't have to read my shit. There's 1,000 other things you can read. Like,
Right.
I'm with you. Like, you can really find your flavor and like lean into it. That's a very cool thing.
Yeah. And I think for us, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting because it was going to transition into something, so I'm actually going to let you go. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, sometimes, we get guests on the podcast, but most of them, the most like athlete guests we got are people who are out off the team now, like Lofa Tutupu or Jermaine Curse. And like, sure, it'd be great to have someone like Geno Smith on, but it's kind of nice to be away from that so you can be objective.
Yeah,
and I think,
absolutely.
and is that something you keep in mind, or do you like try to go like, or is it just if you can get someone big, you'll get someone big?
Yeah, we're open to all of it. We kind of crossed the line this past year. We had Colby Parkinson on, and so it was cool to get. It was off season. We were doing our positional breakdown series, so we went through different positions on the roster and found different experts to talk about it. Like, we got Walter Jones to talk about the offensive line and all that, but he's been retired for a long time. To get Colby Parkinson on to talk about playing tight end was freaking rad. Like, he's in it every day. He shows up trying to be a better tight end, so he's like actually talking about that. But yeah, so that part of it is cool. Like, I would love to get more current players on and hopefully we can pull that off. But like, at the end of the day, I'm always going to like give my opinion on stuff. I'm not like, I want to keep an eye towards being respectful to my guests. They're carving time out of their day to come on and talk with me about football for an hour. Like, I'm going to respect that, but I'm going to say like, hey, here's how I feel. Tell me if I'm off base. You're in it, but like, this is how I feel. And I got to think that a lot of these guys actually really appreciate that, because they are so used to the questions they're being asked are, look, my editor has to approve this. And also, I have to be able to ask you questions next week after the game. So if you hate me, like, you're not going to answer my question. Like, it is a relationship business when you're on the beat. And if you're not on the beat, but you still have those relationships, then you're allowed to be a little bit freewheeling. And you see that at the Combine every year. They give press credentials to 1,000 different people. So you have fantasy bloggers there, and you have people who, are starting a company like yourselves. You could get an on-tap type that's like not necessarily credentialed, but dialed in. And then you start to see the crazy questions like, is the earth
Caleb
flat?
Williams.
You believe birds are real? Like, all that stuff. And you see the players are like, oh, this is actually an interesting question, instead of just, okay, my agent told me to say, yes, I'm just happy to be here, and whatever team drafts me, I'm super happy, blah, blah. You get like a real question in there that maybe a beat reporter would never ask because it's not going to get past their editor. It's like, okay, now it's human to human.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's like a fine line, right? Like there was that guy at the Combine that asked Caleb Williams, like, "Are you scared to do medicals and compete against other people?" And it's like, I was like, this is a little too much. Like, and Caleb Williams, to his credit, handled it really well. He just like kind of like laughed it off and was like, "No, it's just what my team decided." And it's like, I'm not saying we should all be, like assholes to the players, but it is interesting. Like the difference between being like a beat writer and somebody that's just in content. Like, for example, when Quandre Diggs got released, like Quandre Diggs helped us do a Seahawks jersey giveaway earlier this year, and he picked the 2 winners. He's an awesome dude, right? Like, I had my opinions when he got released because I was like, realistically, it makes sense money-wise and whatnot. But I'm like, how do I say it? Like, if he sees this tweet, I don't want to come across as like a dick because he's a good guy. Right. Like, he's a really good guy, and like he's a good football player. But it made sense, in this in this current situation. So it is that interesting fine line between like you said, be respectful to these guys, but at the same time, like it is cool that we can, have a new medium of people actually giving their real opinions and real thoughts, right? Like, and I think that's what's cool about this new media.
Yeah, for sure. And also like maintaining the level of respect that these guys have earned. Like they're in the top 0.1% of the top 0.1%. Like we all grew up wishing we were professional athletes.
Yeah.
These fuckers actually did it. They went through it. They've had the injuries. They outperformed their peers over and over and over again. Like they made the sacrifices. They got there. Like let's not just write that off. You know what I'm saying? And just and like completely equivocate between where we are and where they are. Like I see people shitting on athletes all the time, and it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, we're allowed to be critical. It's the fan experience drives their paychecks and all this stuff. But like at the same time, are you at the level in your life? Are you at the level in your career that they are in theirs? Well, if the answer is no, then just like keep that level of respect there.
Right. And that's a great segue to Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
So obviously we all know what he said to the reporter's wife and stuff. And obviously it was not nice, and you can't do that. There's that level of respect there. But athletes get worse stuff in that all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Miss a field goal, go kill yourself. It's like, Jesus, man, relax. I'm sorry your parlay didn't hit, but chill.
I'm pissed about my parlays too, but shoot.
Right, you're not threatening the families of the dude that missed the shot. Like, give me a break.
But it was very, very interesting to see the hate that Jamal got, and I didn't like it either. Right, I've been critical of Jamal myself, but it was interesting to see the other side when the athlete actually claps back at a fan, a way a fan would clap back at an athlete. The amount of vitriol he ate out of it, people literally have written off Jamal Adams for that.
Mm-hmm. They have.
Yeah,
and I don't know, do you think it's fair, unfair? Where do you it's almost like an actor, right? You cross that, what do they say, the third wall or something?
Yeah, you break the fourth wall, right?
Fourth wall. Is it when an athlete like Jamal Adams does that, is that something you just should never do in your opinion? Or is that something fans kind of do it all the time?
What a great question. I have no problem with people clapping back. Even today, Quandre Diggs, quote tweeted some jerk that was shut the fuck up. And he was he's like, bitch, if you said that to my face, I would slap those goggles off your face. Yeah, and it's okay, that I'm fine with, right? You start, what Jamal Adams did where, I think it was a little bit out of pocket of that. It was a Jets reporter, right? And obviously Jets fans have no love lost for Jamal Adams because of whatever, they used the 6th overall pick on him. He left. It wasn't an amicable divorce, all this stuff. But that was kind of an unnecessary shot. So I don't mind if Jamal just clapped back on him, fair game to me. You come at me, I'm going to come at you. You go with the guy's wife, it's just well, okay, she's not a party to this transaction, right? Don't do that. That comes off bad. When it's auto retweet to me when there's some asshole on Twitter taking a shot at a highly accomplished athlete and they clap back at that person, hell yeah, man. Yeah. Fuck you.
That's fair.
But you start going after family and stuff. That's where I think Jamal missed.
Yeah, I feel that. You can make fun of me if I made fun of you, but
yes,
don't come after my wife, or don't come after my fiance for me, or my future kids or my future wife. Just leave that out of it, bro. It's interesting. It is and that's what social media has done, right? It's given us the opportunity to see these things, and it's honestly a crazy world. It's a crazy.
Sure
we're too available to everybody right now. That's true. It happens.
That's true.
Well, I guess let's talk a little bit about bringing up Diggs and Adams and all this. In all honesty, I was definitely a little bit more shocked about Diggs or like Disley. I wouldn't say I was like jaw drop shocked. I understood. We knew the Jamal Adams one was coming, but like for you, where do you see, like, did you expect all this? Like, did you expect like a clearing of pretty much everyone except I think it was like Jamal, Diggs, Geno, and DK maybe were like some of the most for our cap hit. I think like 2 out of the 4 are already released. Did you expect all this, like Disley, Diggs, Adams, and then I know Monet was probably expected, but like, did you expect all that, or was it kind of a surprise to you that they're pretty much clearing?
Yeah, I expected the Geno restructure. I think that was wired into his contract when he signed it. I think they gave themselves a lot of flexibility to kick some money around after the second year, and they took advantage of that. I think that was all part of the game plan. I think Geno knew it. And Geno, to his credit, helped him win enough games to keep his job safe. Not just because I think that he's a good quarterback, but because they won enough games that they're not picking in the top 5 where there's like, okay, yeah, actually we're going to take a shot on a quarterback over you. The Adams one, I'm with you. I think it just wasn't ever a fit, unfortunately. And I like Jamal Adams, the player, but between the injuries, between the contract, between the cost of acquisition, and then, that thing with the Jets reporter, him not showing up to games down the stretch, the writing was on the wall. No surprise there. The 2 that I was really watching closely were Diggs and Lockett. And I still think that there's a chance for them to move on from Lockett with a post-June 1st cut because it's going to save a lot of money. I think these moves are easier with the new coach coming in.
Yeah.
I don't think Pete Carroll signs off on cutting Quandre Diggs. But you're bringing in Mike McDonald, who has his own way of running a defense with proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
Like, best defense the NFL has seen in a long time last year. At Michigan, he took over as defensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh and inherited the 117th ranked scoring defense, and the next year they were 9th. Like, he has shown when he got hired as the Ravens defensive coordinator, they were 25th in scoring, and they were 3rd the next year and 1st the year after that. Like, he has proof of concept. So when it comes to defensive personnel, like, if John Schneider is working hand in glove with McDonald like he says he is, then if McDonald says, you know what, I can do more with this money than Quandre Diggs, I'm willing to go benefit of the doubt. Like, we've seen what Mike McDonald wants to do work. And so, like, yeah, all right. There's also a bunch of other good safeties Jordan Poyer and Justin Simmons and Xavier McKinney. Like, there's a lot of good safeties that are getting cut right now. And they're on the open market. And maybe Quandre Diggs ends up being the best value and you're bringing him back for less. But, like, is Quandre Diggs the best safety in the NFL? No, he is not. Well, if you don't cut him, you're going to pay him like the best safety in the NFL. And you got needs elsewhere. So... Yeah, I think that you had a market inefficiency there. Disley, I thought it was a bad extension at the time. It cost them DJ Reed. DJ Reed signed for the exact same money with the Jets that Disley got to stay and be the 3rd tight end on the Seahawks. I didn't think that was a very good use of assets, and he's gone now. I know he's a locker room guy, and there is value in that. I'm willing to pay a little bit of a premium for that. I'm not willing to pay $24 million over 3 years for the actual on-field production that Will Disley gives you. Brian Monet, he had his moments. You can find Brian Monet in the draft. You can find Brian Monet in free agency. Lockett's the one that I'm watching. But to me, what this signals is they are trying to free up money to keep Leonard Williams and Jordan Brooks. And I think both Leonard Williams and Jordan Brooks probably the 2 most important players on this defense besides Devin Witherspoon. And so you do what you got to do to keep those guys there. And I'm really excited if they can keep them to see what Mike McDonald can do with them, because I don't think they were optimized in this defense in their time in Seattle. And I think Mike McDonald has shown that he's going to optimize guys. I mean, Patrick Queen was seen universally as a bust before Mike McDonald showed up. Jadeveon Clowney was on his way out of the league. Bam, 13 sacks. No one knew who Justin Matabuke was. Nobody. I didn't know who Justin Matabuke was all of a sudden he's like the best defensive tackle this side of Aaron Donald, right? So, he has shown that he can really maximize the talent that's on his roster. And so, I think Jordan Brooks is Patrick Queen, maybe Patrick Queen plus. I think that Leonard Williams is a close approximation of Justin Madubuike. If Mike McDonald sees value in those guys, you got to pay for those guys. I think you can replace Quandre Diggs, especially given this free agent class of safeties, easier than you can replace either of those guys. And all three of these guys, we're talking about running up the spine of the defense, right? Leonard Williams, he's the closest dude to the ball. Jordan Brooks is right behind him, and Quandre Diggs is right behind him. And so, you want to shore up that strength of the defense right up the spine. And so my assumption is that by freeing up $40 million in effective cap space with these moves, it's about keeping Williams, Brooks, and having a little bit of money to sprinkle elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And like you said, Pete Carroll maybe wouldn't have signed up on these moves, but Mike McDonald does not have the relationship with these players that Pete Carroll had. Fair and simple. And I know a lot of Seahawks Twitter wanted Pete Carroll gone, and then a lot of Seahawks Twitter did not want Quandre Diggs gone. But you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're and you made a good point about McDonald is I don't know, to put it lightly, he's coming in this situation like I'm the fucking man, right? Okay, it might be my first job, almost like a Sean McVay, but you're hiring me to be the fucking guy, right? I changed Michigan, I changed the Ravens. If you're gonna hire me to be that guy, I know that they're saying that now it's John Schneider's show, compared to before where it was Pete and John, but for a fact Mike McDonald has some say, or at least has some opinion where, hey, emotionally, we don't need this contract. Let's move on because I can do more with less, or we can grab these two guys, we can work here and there. Yeah, maybe John has the final say more than he did before, but Mike McDonald's coming into this situation not looking to be a puppet to John either, right? He probably has his opinion, he has his say, and he knows what can work for this team, in what's the best scenario possible for his type of defense. And it's exciting to maybe see this new type of era, right? It's been, I don't know, it's been a situation where we know that Pete Carroll's also he has his dudes, he's not going to want to cut his guys, right? Or he's not going to want to break ties with his guys. And it's I guess, as much it was kind of a bittersweet moment seeing Pete Carroll gone, now we're in a new situation, a new era where we're going to see new guys, the guys that Mike McDonald likes and the guys that John Schneider maybe liked even more, and see this new era of Seahawks football and Seahawks defense specifically. So it's there's a lot of pros and cons to it, but it is exciting to see a guy like Mike McDonald who has turned around a couple places into powerhouse defense, and now see what's he going to do in Seattle? Because I think it's, I love the hire, and I think he's going to turn this defense around. We haven't seen a killer defense back in 2012, 13, 14, 15. We haven't seen that in almost 10 years now. But I think we might get that back, and that's what's exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And to your point, McDonald's, he's not married to these guys. He didn't bring them in. He doesn't have the relationships. And yes, there's value in loyalty and there's value in relationships, but I think there's also value in coming in with a clean slate. And Mike McDonald had leverage. I mean, crying out loud, the guy got a 6-year contract. That's real money. NFL head coach contracts are fully guaranteed by and large. That's real money the franchise is throwing at this dude. He understands his leverage. And there's no doubt in my mind that he and John Schneider figured out the outline of a working relationship before he took that job, because he needs to know who he's answering to on personnel. So I would guess that Schneider is giving McDonald some real input when it comes to the defense, because outside of offensive line injuries, the offense hasn't been the problem with this team. It's been a pretty good offense. The defense has fucking sucked for a while. And
Yeah, which is not Seahawks football, right? I mean,
not
that's
the way
what-
that we got used to. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting that but when the first cycle started and we were looking for the new head coach, I thought we were going to go offense because that's where the league is going, right? But I feel like the Seahawks have kind of like taken almost a page out of a Pittsburgh Steelers playbook, and it's like, hey, we're a franchise that is a defensive franchise, and we're going to go out and have the best defense we can possibly have.
Yeah, I like that. And I think at the end of the day, if you want to win Super Bowls, you got to win your division. And the NFC West is probably the toughest division to win in that you're going to have two teams that are really good every year. I mean, the AFC West is the toughest division to win because the Chiefs exist. But, like, you're not worried about any of the other teams, really, in that division.
Right.
The NFC West, man, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan have been kicking your ass. And so how do you beat them? You can out-offense them. Are you going to out-offense Kyle Shanahan? Are you going to out-offense Sean McVay? Probably not.
No.
You know what Mike McDonald did? Beat both of them a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I think
and
in his time with the Ravens, they're like 8-2 against those two coaches, something like that. Like, you got to beat those guys. Well, this guy has the blueprint. And he had Brock Purdy in hell on Christmas.
Yeah, and
That
he
was
had
at 4
Patrick
picks.
Mahomes. He had Patrick Mahomes in hell in the AFC
He absolutely
championship game.
did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know
3
the Chiefs
points
ended
in
up
their
with-
last 10 drives. Give me a break.
Yeah, like I mean, if the Chiefs' defense wasn't what the Chiefs' defense was this year, we'd be talking about the Baltimore Ravens as the Super Bowl champions right now, not the Kansas City
I
Chiefs.
100% agree with you. Zay Flowers doesn't cough up that football at the 1 yard line. We're talking about
Yeah.
a totally different storyline going into next year.
Yeah, that's actually, I think something that's underplayed sometimes is the fact that Patrick Mahomes was locked up in the second half of that Ravens-Chiefs game.
Yeah, he
and
sure
people don't
was.
really realize that. Like, it wasn't just, I feel like a lot of times with the Ravens, people like to just pin it on Lamar Jackson. But, like, the Chiefs had a good defense. But Patrick Mahomes also got locked up in the second half.
He
And,
sure did.
like you've mentioned the division. I'm still not personally completely out on the Cardinals figuring it out eventually. Like, they had a good run game. Kyler Murray's a good quarterback. Like,
They were very good when Kyler Murray came back. They were very good.
Yeah, they went 4-4 down the stretch with a bad roster. They have a bunch of cap money and 6 of the first 90 picks in this draft. And, like, Kyler Murray is very good. I know he's, like, an easy punchline or whatever. Kyler Murray's fucking good. And
Yeah, I
like,
think
if
Kyler
they
Murray's a
add
top
Marvin
10
Harrison.
quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. You add Marvin Harrison to this or Malik Neighbors, at number 4, and then you get 5 more picks of the top 90 players. Like, in 2 years, the Cardinals are threatening this division, is my prediction. So, like, there's no easy way out here. I don't think there's going to be any easy inter-division wins moving forward. Like, the Seahawks are going to have to be really fucking good to beat the teams in their division.
Yeah, I agree. It is interesting. I guess speaking of quarterbacks, I have to ask. So the whole Geno Smith situation, right? I'm still in belief that the Seahawks might take somebody like Pratt in the second round or something, just like as a backup for the next, maybe follow the Green Bay Packers model.
I like Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, yeah. You never. Spencer Rattler was a top prospect in America, and he was not a bad quarterback. I know he gets hate for not being as good as he was supposed to be, but he's not awful. There's a reason he's, one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in this draft. I think John Schneider said something very interesting, which was that I think Greg Bell reported this on News Tribune, that John Schneider said he was in Green Bay, and he's like, I watched them for, 14 years, and we're not necessarily proud of the fact that we've only drafted 2 quarterbacks in this era. Like, I think it was Alex Magoo, however you say it, and is it McGaw, right? Alex McGaw and
Magoo.
Russell Wilson.
It's Magoo, which
Okay, you would
doesn't
think
help. When you're, trying to make it, you almost have to be like, oh, it's actually McGough. It's actually McGow. You can't be Magoo. But I hear you.
You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Magoo as your quarterback. Yeah, he said they're not proud of it though, and I was like that when he said that, and then he hit you with the Geno's the starter till he's not, and I'm like, okay, yeah, obvious answer, right? Like obviously he's the starter till he's not, But that means the Seahawks are drafting a quarterback at some point. Do you agree with that or no?
I think they will. I wouldn't be surprised if they leave this draft with a quarterback. Thing is like, I look at this two ways. There's the way that 99% of the quarterback discourse is driven, which is like, can this quarterback win you a Super Bowl? Okay, sure, fine. Dan Marino never won one. It took John Elway 17 years to win one. Jim Kelly never won one. Aaron Rodgers has one. Drew Brees has one. Like Tom Brady and now Patrick Mahomes, they've like broken the discourse for quarterbacks winning Super Bowls. I think that's a bit of a logical fallacy to be like, well, can you win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith? Fucking, I don't know. Maybe.
Trent Dilfer won one.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Brock Purdy almost won one. I don't think
Nick Foles won one.
Nick Foles won one. Like, Case Keenum almost won one. Like, this shit happens when you have a really good team. The goal should be to field the best team. And so the other thing, but like on the flip side, with the injury rate in the NFL nowadays, like the physics of the NFL have changed over the last 10 years. You have 240-pound guys running 4.5s. The physics are different. And you're seeing more non-contact injuries because these guys are built like Avengers, and like muscles grow faster than tendons do. And so you have these guys making cuts and their Achilles goes out, like Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins. Their ACL goes out, like Breece Hall's did. Like, just the G-forces on these guys' joints because of their insane physical fitness leads to a high injury rate. Quarterbacks are sitting ducks back there in the NFL, and I'm pro all the quarterback protection rules because for the good of the game. Like, yeah, it sucks when you see a flag thrown over like a ticky-tack hit or whatever, but like at the same time, you're like removing an entire city from contention if the starting quarterback goes down. And still, we had 40 different starting quarterbacks. No, 46 different starting quarterbacks in the NFL this year. And like, I think we're going to start seeing teams put more value into having a backup quarterback. Like, Justin Herbert goes down, you're not going anywhere with Easton Stick, right? Like, you got to have a good backup quarterback. So my guess is that John Schneider's kind of approach behind that comment is like, we have not had the guy that if something happens to our starter that we feel good about. Now, Geno was that guy, and I think that he has since earned that trust. I think Drew Lock did well with the opportunities given. I don't think that he's like great. I don't get the sense that the Seahawks feel this crazy need to find the next franchise quarterback, but I do think they look at what happens if Geno goes down. Well, we're probably fucked.
Yeah. Probably. And I even think Geno Smith's the type of guy that down the line, if we do draft a young quarterback and that young quarterback comes up and becomes a starting quarterback, whether a great starting quarterback, good starting quarterback, I can see Geno still being in this organization as a backup quarterback. I think he's been great to the organization. I think he's a great teammate. I think he's a great, just great for what he does. We didn't ask him to come in and be the savior of the franchise. We asked him to be a amicable starting quarterback, and he's done a great job at being an amicable starting quarterback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if not more.
I'm a pro Geno. I'm a pro Geno guy, and like I'm fine with him being the starting quarterback this year, and maybe next year. Like, the thing is sure, yes, Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick. Russell Wilson was a 3rd round pick. Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. Brock Purdy, if you're a believer in him, was a 7th round pick. That can be out there. Those are outliers, man. What gets lost in that discussion are the dozens and dozens and dozens of quarterbacks, the Jaron Halls and the Kellen Monds and the, like I said, Easton Stick and the Aiden O'Connells and the Tyson Badgents. And there's tons of quarterbacks that get drafted in those rounds that aren't that guy. So
Alex Magoo,
right? Like these are the players, Bailey Zappi, like these are the players that your goal with a backup quarterback is not, can I win a Super Bowl if my starter goes down? If you've got a great starter and he goes down for the season, like you're fucked. But like if your starter goes down for 4 games, do we have someone that can go 2-2 and keep the season on the rails until the starter comes back. That to me is the goal with the backup quarterback. And now I think we're going to see the NFL shift towards being like, yeah, we might need to use a day 2 pick on that guy. Not necessarily like, oh, this is our quarterback of the future in round 3, but is this a quarterback that can keep the season afloat for a month and a half if necessary?
And that's exactly what the Redskins back then, but Commanders did with Kirk Cousins. Like it ended up working out for them long term. That they thought, Kirk Cousins is going to be the, RG3's backup in case RG3 had injury problems. They didn't foresee RG3 having the injury problems that he had, but it worked out. Kirk Cousins was a great backup who became a star.
I love Kirk Cousins. Yeah,
I love him too. He's one guy I would not mind if the price was right. If the Seahawks brought it, but,
yeah. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
You know what he would do with these receivers, man? Kirk Cousins puts the ball where it needs to be when it's supposed to be there so well. He's top 10 at that.
I know.
Some people hate that comment when I
love.
say that, though. Some people hate when I say that. I'm like, he's good, man. He's good. I don't know what people don't see.
Like I love Geno Smith. Like I'm a Geno Smith guy. I think he's the top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And like we're like, oh, top 12 out of 32. No, fuck that. That's top 12 out of 8 billion people.
Yeah.
Like it's not easy to find a top 12 quarterback. Their franchises have spent, the Chicago Bears have spent fucking 50 years looking for a top 12 quarterback. Like that's hard to find. But like, okay, does the top 12 quarterback win you a Super Bowl? Maybe not. But like at the end of the day, like as much as I love Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins is Geno Smith plus. Like Kirk Cousins is that dude. He's a good quarterback.
He is a very good. My guy, and this is not the whiskey talking. I promise you guys, is I'm gonna get so much hate for this. I love Jameis Winston.
I love Jameis too. I love Jameis.
I love if Jameis was the starting quarterback for the Seahawks, I'd be or even the backup. Just having Jameis in my life would make my life just a much better life.
Jameis is great. The challenge with Jameis, and the reason I think worse quarterbacks have gotten better contracts than Jameis Winston.
Yep.
Because Jameis Winston isn't afraid to turn the ball over.
Yep.
And
he's goofy.
And there's nothing that NFL coaches hate more than turnovers, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole let Russ cook thing where he was like on pace to win the MVP in 2020 and he was like setting all the records and he had like 20 touchdown passes in the first 5 games, which had never been done and all this stuff. Then he turned the ball over 4 times against the Rams in a loss. And Pete Carroll like pulled the fucking plug on that, right?
Yeah, he's like, no more cooking. Sorry.
Yeah, and that led to the whole divorce. Like that game led to the whole divorce. And it's like, yeah, NFL coaches, their game plans are built around not turning the football over. And if you turn the football over, I can't build a program around you. At least that's the mindset of a lot of NFL coaches.
Yeah.
And Jameis Winston will turn the football over. And I'm fine with that. Like, as a fan, like, hell yeah, let's swing for the fences. And if we strike out, we strike out. But, like, most coaches want to string a bunch of singles and doubles together in order to get their runs. And Jameis is not that.
Jameis's game plan is fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure is.
We'll see what happens.
Exactly.
He's like, we'll see what happens. Let me just sling the ball around.
That's
But
right.
I think he's married to the city of New Orleans. I think they love him too much
I
down
think so,
there.
too. I think so, too.
Yeah, dude, he's hilarious. He would be a fun quarterback to have for like a year.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's how most teams see him, right?
Yeah, one year would be enough.
There will be a Jameis Winston resurgence, guys. I'm promising you that 1 year, he's going to make a playoff on a bad team, and it's going to be just fun as hell. And we can bet against him in the first round.
I think there's a lot of Baker Mayfield in Jameis Winston. I think he's good enough to get hot and win a bunch of games.
I feel that.
But we're not looking at Jameis Winston, I guess, at the end of the day. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
Hey, man, if he wants to come take a Drew Lock contract for 1 year, $4 million, I'm good with it.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of good content. I'll promise you that. Mm-hmm. Man, I love it. Well, I know we've taken like over an hour, almost an hour and a half of your time. I'm going to ask you one last question, and we got to do this again. But
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be doing this soon, hopefully again. But I want to just ask, what is your like overall realistic thought about this season coming? Like, I feel like everybody has a different answer. Some people think it's going to be same as last year. Some think, oh, they're going to be really good now if a new coach. Some think we're just going to be, rebuilding, whatever it may be. So, like, I want to know what your opinion is.
All right, I'm going to preface this by saying, like, hopefully if there's people listening, watching this that are familiar with my work, like, I'm not a homer. I'm a football fan first and a Seahawks fan second. Like, I love the NFL and I cheer for the Seahawks. But, like, if the Seahawks didn't exist, I'd still be a huge NFL fan. So I'm saying this with that mindset. I think the Seahawks are winning 10-plus games this year because I think they have the talent. I think that, they were a 9-win team with a bottom 3 defense last year, and there is no world where Mike McDonald has a bottom 3 defense.
That's a great point.
And things didn't change on offense, not meaningfully. Right, they're bringing back the most important players. Smith is going to be back. Ken Walker is going to be back. Zach Charbonnet is going to be back. Charles Cross is going to be back. Abe Lucas is going to be back. DK Metcalf is going to be back. Tyler Lockett's probably going to be back. Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be back. Like, that offense ain't going anywhere. And I don't think the issue with the defense was personnel. We're talking Uchenna Nwosu, Draymond Jones, Boye Mafe, Jordan Brooks, Devin Witherspoon, Trey Brown, Reek Woolen, Julian Love, whoever they add with this money. Like, the talent is there, and I think they underperformed last year and won 9 games. So, to me, 10 is kind of the baseline. Are they a 12, 13-win team? No, I think that's reserved for the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Niners, maybe the Eagles, like the teams with, like, really exceptional rosters that Seattle's not quite there yet. But they have an opportunity in this draft and free agency now with some money to spend to close that gap. So, I would predict 10 wins for the Seahawks. If they won 9, I wouldn't be surprised. If they won 8 or less, I would be very surprised. I think this team is more likely to win 11 games than they are to win 8.
I like the prediction. Yeah, I know.
Sign me up.
Yeah, no, I actually didn't necessarily look at it that way at first, but the whole concept of, if this defense was anywhere near as bad as it's been, that would have to mean Mike McDonald's like a bust, right? Like a complete flop of a coach. So, like, if we're assuming he's not a bust of a coach, that means, like, the defense is going to take at least a step or two above, at least at the minimum, which should result in at least one more win. Like, there should be no world where it doesn't. So that is a good way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I see no reason why this roster on paper is worse than it was last year. And like I said, they underperformed and won 9 games. So I think they were a true talent 10-win team last year, and I think they'll be better this year. So my prediction is 10-7, but like I said, I think it's more likely that they win 11 games than it is that they win, say, 8.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hope so too.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this new era. It's gonna be exciting.
Man, you and me both, man. This is an exciting time.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, we should do this again. We're gonna
Definitely
get ready to watch our Apple Cup of basketball, Washington versus Washington State. It's gonna be exciting. But let's do this again for real, even before the season, during the season, anytime.
Yeah. Anytime, man. You guys let me know. I'd love to come back on. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate it too, man.